Radio Forest Podcast.
Tyler, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I have a daughter named Hazel.
Oh, so do I. Isn't that amazing? All right, we have that in common.
How did that name come up for us? It was kind of an older sounding name, yet still kind of timeless.
Yeah, we felt the same way. Also, my wife's grandmother was called Hazel, and she was a real kind of firebrand, Hazel Stitt. And so she liked her rum, and she was a fiery redhead. So we didn't know Hazel was going to be a redhead, but she was, and the name just stuck.
She liked to run, or she liked to drink rum?
She liked to drink rum.
That's the best grandma. Tyler, one more thing we've got in common. You went to college for radio.
Yes, I did.
What did you want to get into in radio? Like, what was the ultimate goal, I guess?
Well, I think, doing what you're doing, really. I figured that would be my destiny, was being either a DJ or, a host or something like that. But then I realized that I liked making music better than I did playing it. So that's kind of the way that it went.
So were you like a music radio listener, or was it more of like a talk format, or just a little bit of both?
Both. Yeah, really. I mean, for me, I just found the magic of radio was that instant connection with people, that, warm human communicator vibe. And, it's certainly something that I was interested in. I wanted to somehow perhaps use elements of my personality, outgoing personality, in that. But also, it's just a medium I always loved. I always loved like BBC radio shows or CBC from Canada, or, National Public Radio type stuff out of the US as well, along with just, straight up top 40, Ryan Seacrest kind of vibe. I also dug that. So I'm still a fan. I'm still a fan of radio, but it's harder. It's getting harder and harder, I feel like, to find good radio. If you look at like NPR, but you also look at all the college and university radio stations in the U.S., I think you guys probably have more than we do. And community radio, I've always loved that, smaller stations, like KCRW out of Los Angeles, incredible radio station. And then back in the day when we first started playing in the United States, there was a station in San Luis Obispo, California, called K-Otter. And it was run by all these sort of aging hippies. It was such a great vibe in there. And they really attached to our band because we went and played a live event of theirs. So they got, they were significant in the early days for airplay for us. And we just loved their kind of almost small, almost like a pirate radio operation. And, always cool. Any individual little station that stands out like that, it's pretty cool.
Now, Tyler is the drummer for the Barenaked Ladies. You've got the Last Summer on Earth tour coming to Idaho June 15th at the Ford Idaho Center with Semisonic. Now, we were going to talk last week, and I believe that you got a phone call, right, relating to the Barenaked Ladies, and you had to head to work. What's going on?
Well, what happened is that we're in the middle of making a record, so, we've got all kinds of last-minute overdubs and, things like that to do before we headed out on the road next week. So that was probably it. I had to get in and, sing a very important backing vocal or something. Tambourine part that just brought the whole song together.
Do you get the call when the songs are written? Is everybody together all at once? Is it kind of pieced together here and there? How does an album come together, or is this one coming together any differently?
Yeah, that's sort of it. Like each guy writes on their own, usually. Sometimes there's some collaborations, but mostly they write on their own, and then we put the songs up, send them to each other, we check it out. Then we have a pre-production rehearsal where we'll get together and play the songs live, come up with ideas, and we'll record that. Hopefully we get to do the pre-pro with the producer, so we get an idea of how we're going to approach it. So, what happens is, since we record those sessions, when we go into the actual studio to lay down the bed tracks, we refer to those and say, hey, this worked or this didn't work, and let's try something different. So it's pretty much an organic process where it goes from the writer demoing to us as a band demoing, then into the recording itself.
Is Geddy Lee involved at all in the new album?
No, Geddy is not involved. Now, the big sort of secret thing with Geddy back over the last few years was that him and Ed were working on developing a Rush pinball machine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Pinball fanatic.
Yeah.
So they managed to, they got that together, and it's out. It's a great machine. And Ed was totally, obviously over the moon working with his childhood idols, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson. So,
have you guys known the guys in Rush for a while, though? Because they also inducted you into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, so...
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, we grew up idolizing them. So, I guess we first came into contact with them in the early 90s. I think 1992, we sold out 4 nights at Massey Hall in Toronto. And, I think the record was 3 nights sold out in a row, and Rush held that record. And so they sent us a bottle of champagne congratulating us for breaking their record. And I remember Ed, who doesn't even drink, walked around all night with that bottle of champagne.
That's a really cool gesture from those guys. That's awesome. I remember around that time, before radio, I was a mobile DJ. There's a couple of songs that stick in my mind that I had to have because they just got so massive no matter what I was DJing, if it was a bar, if it was a birthday party, or even a wedding reception. I had to have those songs. I remember like Mambo No. 5 being huge. I remember the Spice Girls being huge. 1 week was so massive, I had to get it before it got out. I could get like these DJ samplers of the cutting tracks, but people knew it before I knew it. They're like, you got to play 1 week. And I'm like, but it's not a dance song. They're like, trust me, the wedding's going to love it. So what was it like on your end when that song was so huge? Because it was massive in my world.
Oh, yeah. Well, same with us. I mean, we couldn't go anywhere without hearing it. And then, it was in movies. It was all over the place. It's an amazing song in that really it's one that Ed kind of improvised into, that's how he wrote it. He improvised it into a video camera. And it was certainly a lot more kind of indicative of our live show where we do a lot of spontaneous improvisations, etc. It wasn't really a carefully thought out song as much as it just came off the top of his head. And I think that's a real tribute to his freestyling ability and also for us trusting ourselves and what comes out of our mouths during the show. We ended up recording that. And I think when we recorded it, we really felt like it was just maybe going to be a B-side or something fun. And then when the record company heard it, they said, this is a single, man. Lo and behold, it's been our only ever #1 hit single in the United States. So thank goodness for video technology and for Ed coming up with some pretty good lyrics off the top of his head.
Now, isn't that sort of how the Big Bang Theory theme came about, too? Because if I'm correct, Ed was doing that live, some topics similar to what became in the show. The writers of the show were in the crowd or something like that?
That's correct. Yeah, Bill Prady and Chuck Lorre, the creators of Big Bang Theory, were at our show at the Greek Theater in L.A. And Ed was doing some spontaneous rap about fractals, which is, kind of an indication of the science geek that he really is. They turned to each other and said, look, we got to get these guys to write our theme song. And the show was in development at the time. They only had a pilot. And they sent us the pilot, and I didn't really like it that much. I didn't really get it. And then, of course, like Hollywood, they needed a song yesterday. And we just started a 2-week holiday vacation. And I was at my cottage up north here, and I get a call on day 3. I just started to relax. I need you to come back to Toronto to record this Big Bang Theory thing. I said, you know what, man? I don't even really like it, the show. And you just play drums because Ed's a drummer, too. And he said, Ty, look, man, this could be really good. These guys are great to work with. The show could be really good for us. I said, okay, I'll come in, but this show better be the next friggin' Seinfeld. It's amazing. If I hadn't come in that day, I'd be living in a shack by the river somewhere. I'm glad I did.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your drumming. You've incorporated electronics into the studio and the live performances. Has that always been part of your bag of tricks, so to speak, or your tools? Is that something that progresses and changes? Like, are you a big fan of technology in the drums?
Yeah, we have some, some loops and samples that we play along with, and that always ends up being challenging or enhances the sound for us. I'm a fan of it. I embrace technology, definitely. I'm not a total tech head, whereas everything I have is samples and whatever else, but I utilize it where it's effective.
Talk to me about your own flavor of ice cream. Not a ton of people, and even smaller group, not a ton of bands, have partnered with something like this. I think Rush had their own mustard like this year or late last year, but you guys have your own brand of ice cream, or your own flavor, rather.
Yeah, we did. It's actually been discontinued now, but it was around for about 12 years, and it was a Ben & Jerry's flavor called If I Had a Million Flavors. So it's sort of like a kitchen sink thing with like chocolate and peanut butter cups and chocolate chips and pretzels and everything in there. We donated the proceeds to literacy programs here in Canada. So I think we ended up raising over $300,000 for literacy programs over the years. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Did you get to keep any? Like, do you have one in the freezer? If it's discontinued.
If I had one in the freezer, it would be a frozen glacier now. So no, I don't. But we do have another ice cream flavor out of Lewiston, New York. It's a custard, frozen custard. It's called Big Barenaked Buzz. And it's a coffee espresso flavored custard, and it's pretty amazing. Every time we go there, I get some of those flavors.
Can you order it from anywhere else, or do you have to be in New York to get that?
I'm not sure if it's available online, but I think it's pretty much a New York State kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess to ship custard, it's not exactly easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler, any idea on a release date for this album, or is it so new in the recording process you have no clue?
I think we're looking at a June release of our first song from the record, and July second song, and I think the album itself is probably going to come out in September.
Tyler Stewart, Barenaked Ladies. He plays drums. Last summer on Earth Tour with Semisonic, comes through Idaho June 15th at the Ford Idaho Center. Tyler, hey, thanks for calling in today, man. I really appreciated talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for coming back.